It's
Yeah,
more like
man.
luck, not
Vito, look at this.
skills, but luck.
I'm like one more joint away from having your haircut right now. This is
Mine are dinky.
you know what I mean?
Wait, how is the hair coming along?
I mean,
It's
look, it's.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
are you
I
talking
mean,
about that? Me, it sucks. Everything sucks. Don't have a heart attack. And then knit your body back together is my advice.
I can see on the, I guess your right side of your head, which is left, stage right. I don't know what it is. Has some patches. Is patchy, right?
Oh no, I'll send you pictures later. I grew back about like 15% of the circles have vanished. I ended up getting alopecia
Hmm.
in May
Which
after
explains the neo-Nazi look that he has.
after having a fucking heart attack at the Kingston Comic Con with Dean.
Hmm.
And my body just died. I've never had a year like last year, man. So it's weird. It's a very weird zipper hair. I don't love it. I don't
It
love
looks
it.
good on you though. I mean, whatever for
It's
what it is.
severe, man. It's really like it's just severe. My personality doesn't match my look right now, is what I'm finding. Like,
I
That's what
don't
I
know,
always say
man.
about myself.
do you feel that way?
Oh my
Did you
God.
really? Yeah.
Who wants to look like this on purpose?
I think I love the way
You
Vito's
look like
face
Vito, the
brings
mustache.
joy.
I got a little bit of mustache envy, man. I may regrow it now that I don't have fucking anything on the sides anymore. But I don't know
That's
how
how you
you
distract people.
do you buzz it or do you like straight
Oh
razor?
no, razor.
You use
Like
razor?
a
I was doing it. I was doing it with with like the manscaper I have. I don't really
Mhm.
usually use that on my balls. I'm using it on my head, but I was using, and then my buddy Keith is like not, he's lost his hair for a good 15 years now, and
Yeah.
he's like deep Brooklyn accent. He's always like, "You gotta just get a big razor and do it. You just gotta do it in the." And
I
he,
use a
so
Harry's razor.
I have a Gillette that I was using, but it is I scream out about like 2 dozen times while I'm doing it. I keep going like, "This is so fucking weird." I'm by myself in the bathroom, and I'm like,
You know,
"This is fucking
If
weird."
you remember 2, 3 years ago at Baltimore, I had to wear a hat because I scalped myself. Do you
I
remember
didn't
that?
notice that.
oh,
Oh,
I
no
remember
shit.
that.
Yeah.
No
So,
I
shit.
I
remember
mean, I
that.
don't have any ill effects from that, but
No
But
shit.
I've never shared this, but my art table on the other side of this laptop faces, Whitney's side of the room
right.
and a little small refrigerator, a microwave, and a
A
coffee
Mike
pot, right?
and a Mike Houston here.
And Mike uses the other side when he shows
Okay.
up. But where there's this drawing that Whitney did of Bob Harrison
Huh.
Yeah,
that
okay.
I see every day, and it just brings me such joy, just like Vito's mustache brings me joy. And I'm going to share. Can you
Oh
see?
yeah.
That's actually very good.
Is that incredible?
That's
That
amazing.
actually is very good. If you know something, man, she should send that to him and he should make pins.
He should make pins out of
He
it.
should make pins out of
Absolutely.
that. He should totally like just like go and like hand those out, with his brand on it for the podcast he does.
All right,
So,
so Vito, should we start the show?
yeah, you told me to start recording, so I didn't do the introduction. Uh, Welcome to episode 60 of the Vito X Dino podcast. I am the toilet paper chocolate donut man. His name is Dean Haspiel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dean Haspiel, and
Did you
the peanut butter toilet chocolate donut, whatever, man,
did you see that
is
video?
Vito Delsante.
Yes, I'm Vito Delsante. Did you see the video I sent you though of the toilet
Oh,
paper chocolate donut man?
wait, is this recent?
Oh, it was like 2 nights ago, maybe
Oh,
last
then
night.
you sent me so many things, Vito.
It's our ongoing war. We call it a jihad, but I don't know if we can use those terms
Well,
anymore.
it's like a social media digital jihad that between and Chris does it to me
I
too.
was
There are
gonna
three or
say,
four
like, that's your
people
other person.
where we send, except he's more political, Chris. Oh, by the way, Chris Miskiewicz is our guest
Yes.
for episode 60 of the Vito X Dino podcast. Hi, Chris.
I can talk. I didn't realize you guys.
Oh
Oh,
no,
You,
no,
I
no.
thought you did like a boop boop and you show up there. Hi, everybody.
there he
Yeah,
is.
Chris is
There he
your
is.
other bombarder.
Chris, and there's a couple other people that I do this back and forth with, but you're Vito. You send the most.
What are you talking about? Reels and
Yeah,
things
yeah.
like that on it?
Like,
Yeah.
but there
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
days that I'll just like stop and
Yeah.
I'm like just trying to absorb. Then I'm like, oh, they think I'm dead. I gotta give them 7 or 8 before I go to bed.
But you
My
have some
friend,
of the best responses. Vito has some of the best. He literally types. You know how most of us don't just go look at it and either laugh or roll our eyes and don't say anything back, right? Like Vito actually responds to like half of them, and they're hilarious.
I have to because like number one, like you have to put her if you don't put in a reaction, I don't know that you saw it.
Mhm.
But let's see, what was one of the things I wrote that Dean thought was funny?
my buddy Gary and Gary Stevens just go back and forth with lately. He's been sending chicks cooking. That site really just hooks onto something you look at for 5 minutes and then destroys your algorithm. So like the last week, I've been getting lots of South American women cooking.
There's one that Chris
which are
sent to me.
interesting reels. Yeah.
Well, no, I love to watch cooking, but it's almost akin to the kitty cat videos. But Chris sends a guy. Actually, is it one guy? There's two guys. There's one guy who sings terribly.
I love him. Oh, I
Slowly.
love him. Oh, that guy.
And there's another guy who
something.
has a lot of like loud instruments, and he does some kind of DJ. They're awful, and I don't get them at all. They're not even funny.
They're both two of the most unique artists out there.
Sure.
They're
Very
they're
kind.
very unique. They're unique, right? One guy's on acid, and the other guy is on acid as well. Different.
So,
brand.
Vito, what were you going to say?
Dean, I sent this to you the same day that I sent you that Patrice O'Neill clip, which you did respond to. So here, I don't know. Oh, that's right.
I turned that off.
You have.
I'm looking at this thing.
Don't say thing. It's a person.
There's donuts on his eyes. You see this, Chris?
I know that guy. That guy just found his way into my my time wasting skills as well.
I sent another one to Dean.
Yeah.
I think no, I didn't. I sent it to somebody else. He does a bunch. Like he's got hot dogs and watermelons.
Oh yeah. No, it's bad.
He's phenomenal.
You got to wonder what his car looks like because that stuff's got to drip down, and he's always in his
There was one you just sent me, Vito. I think where a young kid's coming at somebody with a camera and then gets slapped down so hard that I'm not gonna, for lack of a better term, I can't say the R word, but he basically.
Oh yeah.
And then, but it's a reaction video of like a big black dude lying on his bed with the camera's half on his face. What did he say?
I can't remember.
Something like he slapped him into special needs. That's what it was. He said he made him into special needs. Like I was like, oh my god!
Like I could use
and that's a whole world. There's a whole world of people are just doing like the reaction video thing, right? Like that's their thing, you know. Sometimes it's funny.
Couch.
Yeah, totally, just chilling.
So let's introduce Chris properly.
Yes.
How do you do that?
So, well, I'm going to have Chris kind of do a little origin for the people who listen and watch this show and may not know Chris Miskiewicz. Chris, I met as an actor who I think wanted to do comics. I don't think you had done comics when I met you, or maybe you might have done one script, possibly.
I
remember
that was
during the Activate years, right?
Yeah, I basically was like, all right, I'm gonna, I had been in a band for 8 years. This group called Swinger 8. That was it was great. Yeah, we never. I used to have business cards that said Brooklyn's greatest unsigned band that I'd give out, which stayed the same, and maybe that branding wasn't exactly the best way to go about things.
Or you could have changed your band name to that name and gotten a deal.
It's probably, you know what, you're probably right, actually. But we had broken up after 8 years, and the same 3 original members and other people coming in and out, and I met you right around that year, like
Rocket Ship or something.
I remember meeting you. It was due to it was Mike Cavallero's fault, actually.
Right.
When I get into it, because I through the music, I knew a cat named Andrew Wendell. He used to be a penciler back when Valiant was like the original Valiant before the relaunch of Valiant in the 2010s. And he was there with Casada and that whole group when they were all just working at that version of it. I think it was Starlings, right? Wasn't it at that point? The original Valiant? Am I wrong? I might be wrong.
I believe that was you're talking about 90s. We're talking about Jim Shooter.
Shooter,
Valiant,
sorry.
right? Yeah.
Shooter, right.
And I never read any of those comics. And yes, Mike Cavallaro, who's one of our studio mates, worked at Valiant back in the day, probably with Wendell, right?
Wendell, which is how they knew each other. And so Wendell was the only person I knew who was working or had ever worked in comics. And I was coming from music. I had quit. I had been working at the History Channel as a coordinator. I was working in film and TV since I got out of college, basically as like a grunt and a PA and a coordinator and all these. Anyway, they offered me a promo producer job. And I didn't take it. And I always wonder why I didn't do that, because the money was great. And they were just going to extend my contract. And I just really didn't like the corner of the office I was sitting in with everybody else at the History Channel. I did not like the crew I was with. It was wild. I was working there with this actor, David Blatt, that, a couple of people know. And I remember, hey, we're going to hire you. We're going to do, blah, blah, blah. I'm in there with Mickey Mohammed, who was the VP at the time. And I was like, I really appreciate this, but I'm not going to take the gig. And they're like, well, he was shocked, and I was like, why? Eventually goes like, why? And I'm like, well, I don't want to do this. And I want to figure out how to be a writer. I want to write comic books and things.
So you were obviously reading comics at the time.
I'd been collecting since I'm 10. Yeah.
Right.
And I call that like my weird 2 years, or my lost year, which ended up being 2, because I took a million strange jobs. I was trying to figure out what to do. I didn't want to do what I was doing. And I ended up getting, but what is your term? By hook or by crook? You usually say, like, I ended up getting my SAG card, and my second act started where I started doing background acting on a show called Life on Mars, which was the American version of the British show. And
was that Donald Logue on that show?
I'm sorry?
Was that Donald Logue on that show? Or
I know that name, but he wasn't one of the main cast members. If it was, it was Mike Imperioli.
Okay.
Jason Mara.
I remember.
And Harvey Keitel. And what was really cool, I remember the first day I got on that, like, just random background dude, they dropped me into 1970s clothes. They threw you into, like, the speed of light into this, they were going to open the doors to a precinct, and I'm standing there. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing or who anybody is. And the stand-ins walk away. And at that point I was like, I don't even know who the stand-ins are. I don't understand how this part of this works. And then Harvey Keitel ends up standing next to me, and I'm blown away. And we went through the scene like 4 times, and cut, take, all right, moving on. And Keitel turned to me and went, "Thanks a lot, kid. You were good." And he shook my hand. I was done. I was done. I was like, I remember staring at my hand for like 5 minutes, like, are you kidding me? That's Harvey Keitel. And then I called my mom. I was like, Ma, you're not going to believe it. I still only had a Brooklyn accent again. And,
Ma, he jerked off with that hand in Bad Lieutenant.
But anyway.
To his own babysitter, by the way. Real quick story.
That's
you ever see Bad Lieutenant? Vito?
Yes. Well, a long time ago.
So do you remember the scene where 2 girls pull up in a car and he jerks off, show me how you do it with your mouth?
Yeah.
Well, that was his babysitter at the time that wanted a role in the movie.
Is that real? No shit.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if that's cool. But...
I think that's cool.
Don't worry, Vito.
He was married to Lorraine Bracco or something, right?
Yes. I believe so.
I was going to say, maybe at that point, I'm pretty sure she was married to him. Anyway.
Yes. So
that started a very weird long
your
path.
hand.
That started a long path of me doing that for a bunch of years, and eventually working as a stand-in primarily for about 13 years. But what happened then, I was through Andrew Wendell, this other musician I knew from the band. We used to hang out at this bar in Greenpoint called the Mark Bar. Shout out, Tommy. And one night, just talking, I came up with something, and Andrew wanted to get back into comics. So it began. I started to just sort of hang out with him and mostly drink and start writing a script. I came up with something called the 20th Century. He ended up, it was very interesting. And one day I found myself, he introduced me to Mike Cavallero somehow. I don't remember where we were or we ran into him. But
well, also Mike is, like you said, is a musician, and he had a band.
it was the music comic guys. We all were just sort of like this other little subculture in comics going on. And I ran into Mike at the original St. Mark's Comics when it was still on St. Mark's.
Right.
And he was like, "Hey, you're Andrew's friend. Really sweet guy, I'm like, how are you? What are you up to? What you been doing?" He's like, "Oh, this came out. I remember buying whatever comic he had out." And then like a couple weeks later, there we were at Mocha, back when it was at the Puck Building.
Mm.
And I met you at Puck Fair, and you were holding court. It looked like you had like all of Activate around you. You had like a corner booth. It was like the godfather of Brooklyn indie comics back at the time. And I remember going in there. I think I was with David Blatt and Lori at the time. And Cavallero saw me, flagged me over. He's like, "Hey, come on over." I'm like, "Nah, looks like you're doing your thing." And then it happened. I remember sitting there with you, and within about like 10 minutes, you were like, "So I hear you're like an actor." You gave me that, and then it began.
I don't sound like that at all.
No, you don't.
What am I?
That's Sean Von Gorman. Hey, Sean, if you're watching, that's
Sean.
When Sean Von Gorman and I start with absolute love doing your voice, we both put on this Dean Hesp. It's like this. It's like a character of. It makes no sense. But that's where it began, man. Yeah, and then Andrew quit. He was like, "I don't want to draw this thing anymore. It's period piece." And I was like, "What do you want to do?" And he's like, "I don't know. I just want to draw crazy shit. I want to just draw squids and tigers and animals everywhere, just running through the streets and do it." And I'm like, "I don't understand." He's like, "Just coming out just for no." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Just every episode. I just want to do episodic fiction where it's just animal apocalypse." And I'm like, "I don't understand. Like, why?" He goes, "Who cares why?" And I went home after hanging out at the bar thinking to myself, I'm dead. Like, I just spent like months with this guy making this thing, trying to get it ready to like pitch. I don't know how to pitch. And it's dead. It blows up. It's done. I'm never going to do that. And I'm like, animals, son of a bitch. Like that week, I ended up writing 5 scripts. I ended up emailing them all to you because we're friends for a couple months at that point, or becoming friends. And you write me back an email within like 2-3 hours, like an email, a text, a call. I think I was on set or something, and it was just we weren't connecting. And you were like, "Don't send this to anybody. Hold on. Do you want to do this? It was just back and like, "This is an Activate comic. Could you do this week?" And we were like, we eventually got on the phone. I'm like, "I can't do this weekly. I don't know how to even do anything." And it ended up then matriculating into what would be the last season for Activate Comics. It was me and James Smith, and we were literally the last 2 things going on that site for about a year and a half before it was.
I don't think I was very much a part of it at that point. And
you were, but you like I got in there, and you you guys all had a little bit of friction, and it began to. It
expanded way too much, I guess, is what happened. And that's a whole other, actually, Vito, at some point, we could do a whole thing on Activate. And I actually don't even have, like, you have, I think, better memory. And Dan Goldman apparently has a lot of receipts as well. And we could probably have a whole talk about that. But the strip was called, this thing about animals coming out of nowhere.
Right.
Called Everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. It ended up being the Everywhere anthology. And we did. And
you abandoned plot, and all it is inciting incident, right? It's a guy running.
What was it? Oh my God, do you remember this? The log line was like like something like in a world where blah blah blah, and the natural order goes whatever the fuck I said. But basically every episode was a Twilight Zone episode where, for no explainable reason, one species of animal would show up by the bazillions and be all over the fucking place. And like,
Yep.
we did we did cats, fish. Seth Kushner did a photo comic for spiders, which
Hmm.
is I have to email his Tara, his old wife, and see
Right.
if she still has
Right.
any.
Right.
I need to get that in print with high res at some point in the future. It's one
Yep.
of the Kickstarter, crowdfunding ideas I keep thinking about bringing back with some newer stories and creators we know. The only issue being it's landscape, right?
So it's a
Instead of
landscape
normal.
kind of when comics for a little while,
Yeah.
when web comics were basically told to be landscape to fit the laptop screen.
Right.
Right.
And then of course the iPad came out and it turned back to traditional Comic Sans,
And
you
then
know,
it connects to the scroll 2 seconds after that, and it
exactly.
becomes
You know
Exactly.
and so
what I always admired about Chris, and I don't know if you still do this, but Chris would always write on set on his phone, like in Notes app or whatever. And people were like, "Oh, what's some advice you would give, an upcoming writer?" I was like, "There's the advice was always there's no reason for you not to write." And I would always use Chris as an example because he would always have something. I'm always tugging along a notebook and a pen,
Mhm.
but Chris is always using his phone
Yeah,
and just like whenever there's downtime, he's just back on it and stuff.
yeah,
And
Chris,
yeah.
talk a
I
little
always
bit
admired
about
that about you.
and same and talk about a little bit about being on set and how like I guess a lot of people who want to be actors are trying to like maybe learn lines or trying to book another gig and because there's a lot of waiting that happens I think when you're acting, right, a ton of waiting, but
Oh
what's
yeah.
Chris doing? He's
Oh
writing
yeah.
graphic novels,
Yeah.
like talk a little bit about like about
It,
that
I I
and the response because I think people used to go what the hell are you doing.
Nobody knew it. Nobody understood what I was doing. I mean, yeah, it. I don't even know what I was doing. I mean, I wanted to be a writer. What does that mean? I don't know. You have to write, right? And then there's the 10,000 hours beat, right? And Vito, Dean, you guys know this. You spend way too many hours, 3 months punishing yourself on one script, and then you reread it 400 more times. And like it's a forever process of sanding. If to use carpentry term, you're just constantly sanding and editing a concept down. How do you find the time is what my problem was in my late 20s and my early 30s. How the fuck am I going to do this and eat? I live in Brooklyn, New York. This is a very expensive city. I'm barely blue collar guy trying to blah 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 with this art wand. It was a nightmare. So when I got I've been on set since I'm 21. When I got into doing this other aspect of it, I didn't really like doing background acting at all. But I didn't want to be a background actor. I didn't really want to be an actor. It wasn't a goal. What I wanted to do was learn every fucking aspect of how everything was happening while I was there. And I managed to, by luck, in a sense, matriculate into this position called a stand-in, a technical actor, where I suddenly became the center of attention for all setups, right? I have to do everything, depending on your shoot, of what your main actor or that character is doing. I have a bit of a photographic memory where I could do this trick where if I close my eyes, I could see a page that I read. So I could learn lines really, really quickly, or quickly enough to do this function, right? So I did that, and I ended up doing this gig forever, for like about 13 years, and primarily in TV. But then it started bumping up to movies, and then I started getting all these leading name guys, and it was just strange and also really humbling to be in this kind of like 2 feet away from these people. I mean, my favorite person on the planet that I ever got to do this for was Hugh Jackman. I worked with him on 2 films. I did The Greatest Showman for, my God, I don't know what that was anymore, 12 months, 14 months or something. It was over a year of my life. And then something right after that called Bad Education. And to his credit, or the person that he is to this day, we still exchange emails. I almost saw him a couple of weeks ago and he was singing Song Sung Blue downtown at his bar, but I couldn't get through the crowd to say hi. He's a wonderful guy. it was just wild. I've worked for him. I've worked for Ed Norton, who was intense, but I think I might be the only guy who ever worked in Hollywood that really like likes that guy and respects that guy. He was so fucking decimal point about anything, everything. I
Hmm.
loved it. I was like, but with all of that, I mean, then there's James Franco. I grew a mustache like Vito's. I did not know my Polish genes had that had that power. I might grow it back soon, but that was a weird gig, and that was exactly when his downfall came on the Deuce, and I saw too much, and let's just redact it. But in those situations, you're only being used when you're being used, right? If you're filming, or I'm sorry, if you're setting up on me all day long, well, we're fucked. The shoot's fucked, right? I should only be being used as much as I'm being used. So with that, my protocol would be to chill behind the monitors, watch what's going on, things change, and then I had an iPad mini in my jacket, right? And thank you, Final Draft, for existing. Thank you, Steve Jobs, for making something this big that I could literally, I would go shopping with it and buy jackets and pants that the iPad could fit in so that I would have it on me on set all day. So what I would end up doing, location pending, because when you're outside and night shoots and freezing, you don't really want to be doing anything but trying to stay alive. But I had a personal goal where I would try to edit, read through, stare at 8 to 10 pages a day while I was on set. A week passes, well, that's an issue of a comic, right?
Right.
So, I was always trying to pack away my time. What was interesting is as many people who were staring at me doing this, going like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm trying to write a comic book. You draw? No, I'm a writer. Well, you draw? We all know what that's like, right? And
Look at my
what
shirt.
started, I love
Vito
that.
shirt.
Oh my God,
Sorry,
I
I'm
love
just
that.
the
I
writer.
love that. I love that. There was
Yeah.
a there's this great actor, David Tully, who I was working with pretty much all the time. I had this crew of guys I was with for about 4 or 5 years, and he was one of the dudes who came up to me and was just like, "What are you doing all the time over there?" I'm like, "I don't fucking know." Guy's got a magical power. I'm writing about them. That's what I was writing when I was writing it. But a couple of guys who were also kind of stuck in this bizarre set life, world of make believe stages that we were doing with the same amount of time, like that were just like, doing this in the corner for fucking 7 hours while they weren't being used. We're like, where is it going? What is he doing? And a couple of people started taking like the initiative with the time, like, I have all this time. I'm getting paid to sit here. And David Tully was one of those guys that at some point was like, you really inspired me. I've been taking my teaching courses
Mm.
in holding, in set,
Mhm.
in the fucking guys in Florida, 2 kids, been a teacher for a decade from that moment as well. So there were a number of us that kind of like gamed that system as much as you could with
Every part-time job I ever got, and I mean like not waiting tables. That was like actually my favorite part-time job. But in an office where I'd work 4 or 5 hours,
yeah.
I'd say at least half of that time I was writing and drawing my comics because there wasn't that much work. And so
Sure.
I'm not going to sit around and stare. I mean, that was before. I feel like our social media culture is more dominant than ever before in terms of our time. Like, talking about how we send each other videos like a jihad, kind of thing.
Agree.
Back then, it was a little bit. You could sign off and go do something and have a life, and then check your email later or go online a little bit. I remember when Nerve.com kind of held me hostage for a little while. When I was single. And but a couple of things I just wanted to, because I know you well enough that I know to ask certain questions or to ask you about certain things. One is real quick. Can you tell the dirty little secret of one of the reasons why you initially got the Hugh Jackman job?
A dirty little secret. There. Oh, that wasn't a
He
secret.
sits
I mean,
back as if he's
that was that's not a
like
secret.
like he
And I
tied the
pulled up
grenade.
my foot. I pulled up my foot.
No, it's funny. I wore Tallman shoes. I'm 6 feet tall. I like to, when I'm being cute, tell people I'm 5'12". Uh, but Jackman's 6'2.5", right? 6'2", 6'2.5", whatever. And when we were doing The Greatest
The
Showman,
size of Wolverine.
right? Yeah,
Right.
well, he did do the little one too in the movie.
Funhouse mirror Wolverine.
I loved when he did Little Wolverine.
Yeah, little Wolverine.
But I remember I had gotten I got these things called Tallman shoes, and
Right.
they're I mean, if I go ran in the closet for like 20 minutes, I could probably find them still, but they look like normal shoes, except that they're knitted down over like the cushion. So they gave me like 2.5 inches of height, man. It was the strangest. It was interesting being up there. I had to buy a bunch of pants that were like 2 inches longer for that gig too, because I looked like high
And the
waters.
reason and the reason being is part of your job is being a technical actor because of lighting.
I had to match his height, his coloring, his yeah, that kind of
Yep.
thing. And
Yep.
I actually I didn't have to match the dancing, but I did walk the dances once, which was kind of ridiculous for that in
Right.
the big top. What's funny, I remember working on the Deuce for James Franco was rough. That was a rough job, and how I looked, how I had to physically change. The hours were sometimes 15 hours long. It was a rough gig, and I got trashed at the wrap party. I don't really drink much. We all know I'm a bit of a smoker, right? And I mean, I went the other way that night. It was like, you have mojitos? Gone. I was gone. And I remember running up to Grant Wilfrey, who owns Grant Wilfrey Casting, and there were a few people there who yeah, were the casting agents for our area of it. And I went up to him. I didn't realize he was there. I turned around, he was there. He's like, Chris, much bigger than me. I wasn't in Tallman shoes. And he was just like, I want to thank you for this. We have a really big job coming up, and we're only going to send you for it. And I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, what are you gonna make me do? That fucking difference. I mean, I was a disaster. I'm like, look at this mustache I have. I was like, the only people who talk to me are like women who have like an uncle with like wood paneled basement stuff in like Pennsylvania, man, with problems. Like, this is a weird year, bro. And stuff. And I remember he was just like, I was like, he's like, well, okay. Like, the other casting agents were cracking up. And then I'm like, who is it? And he goes, it's Hugh Jackman. And I was like, and I went, he's like a foot taller than me. How am I going to do this? And I just remember him go grow. Like,
Bro.
2 weeks later, I got the call for all right, it's Thursday. I'm like, what am I going to do? But it worked out. It was actually a really nice, it was a cool
I
relationship.
remember you showing me a text that you got from Hugh Jackman. I want to say 2, maybe even 3 years before Wolverine Deadpool, where it was something like Ryan Reynolds and him were texting. They're like, we should do a week like a road movie, a weekend road movie.
It's a little blurry. When we were
something like that.
He was doing promo for Logan while Showman was filming, and they had worked in I think a 4-week or 2-week break in filming so that he could do what he does all over the world for that. When he came back, we were in the big tent, like 300 people pretending it's a circus and stuff. And one day, what happened? A $300,000 camera on a drone hit one of the wires and we were standing by for a little while like I think they were coming in from the city with like a replacement pieces, and like so there was a bit of dead time. And so I went over. He was over at his chairs. I went over to him, sat down for a second. I was like, all right, let's do this. I saw Logan. He's like, we got into it. We talked a ton about it, and he had all of these alternate things. There was going to be a completely different opening they wanted to film. He told me about where they were like coming off the road, and the road was going to be all these crash cars, and like you were going to go through the entire X mansion because whatever happened to Charles and that was bigger than just the X mansion. They didn't do that. He told me they were trying to get Liev Schreiber in it for a point to play. That didn't happen, and he was going on and on. I was just like, I think we went to see it together, if I recall that film as well.
Logan?
Yeah, I think I went, and then
Maybe.
we went together at that time. And like, I went with comic dudes. We were all talking about it. But he was like, this was a really good like 30 minutes we had on set bullshitting about this and stuff. And then I was just like, all right, that's it. But for real, that's it. You're quitting, And he did this little tiny thing that I loved forever, where he's sitting there next to me. He goes. I have never forgotten that little breath. And he had said, what I really wanted to do, and I wish we could have found a way for it to happen, was do some sort of buddy movie with me and Ryan, sort of like Midnight Run. And cut ahead a couple of years later, he even uses that exact term in some interviews. Where he's like, "Yeah, we're doing a buddy movie like Midnight Run," and that is a terrible Australian accent. Sorry, Hugh. It's worse than my Dean accent.
You shouldn't be an actor.
I'm not anymore.
I was gonna say
with this haircut, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna play.
You can get a lot of roles today.
But with this, I could be an ICE recruiter,
ICE agent, exactly.
Terrible.
Maybe you and Vito, and there's a lot more history coming up that I want to talk about with your career. But another thing I want you to talk about a little bit is, and I don't think Vito does this, but I want to know what Vito's responses to this. You mentioned Final Draft.
Mm.
You like to write with Final Draft.
Love it.
You write your comic book scripts as screenplays or something to that effect.
Yeah, I do a tweak. I could send you something to show you what I'm doing.
I know Final Draft, I think, has a comic template. You use the screenplay template.
Yeah. I use the screenplay template, and I manually input page and panel markers. Sound
but why?
effect.
Why? Because you're trying to write both at the same time, in a way, right?
I've been, how do I say this? Like, because of everything I just, everyone tuned out listening to, bored out of their minds, I was just talking about for the last 15 minutes on set, I was in a place where I would be constantly seeing scripts, like top of the line, top of the tip of the sword, current right now, multi-million-dollar, this is what it looks like scripts, and every day I have my side. Every day I've got and I'm like, all right, at the same time now I'm working in indie comics. I'm trying to get a book done. I'm, doing the, and every time I would ever get friendly with another writer, I would see that every single person who was doing this was still writing in Word, was like almost like working on like an old analog typewriter, like tabbing over to kind of make it, or it was all on the left, and it's all just. And I found that this was a normal comic script. I am not trashing anybody. Script's a script. And if your artist could draw it, and if you're the artist and the writer and you know what the fuck you're doing, do it. Go. Great. The book. But it bothered me that, comic writers kind of looked at like the redheaded stepchild once you go to higher media. You have all these other guys that are like, oh, I'm the TV writer, I'm this guy writer, I'm the whatever writer. You don't have a fucking book. You don't have anything. You should relax, bro. And I morphed it. I pulled them together. My thinking being, if I'm burning this much time to write this in this form now, sure as shit, I don't want to look at this in 6 years again and now put it into a screenplay format. Because I'm pitching it, because someone somewhere is like, that's a great idea. What I can do, and what I've done, and what I'll do tomorrow if I have to send something that's not quite in the format is, I have if I'm trying to produce it as a comic, it's a comic script. In a situation like Thomas Alsop or This Is Where We Fall, the moment Fall came out at Z2 and we were done with lettering and that was it, I washed it. I made a copy of the script, pulled another doc. I've got the comic script now. and I wash out the comic book directions. What a great book. This is an amazing book. Can I see the screenplay? You fucking bet. Gone. Done. And I don't know why I'm an anomaly doing this in the field that we work in. I find that most writers are just thinking about the book, right? Which is important. I don't know why I'm doing this. It's not, no one's better, no one's worse, but I think the mechanics of how you use the time that you're scripting, it sucks going back. You got other things you're doing. That was 2016 Chris or 2020 Chris, I'm 2026 Zipperhead Chris right now. Like it's a different guy. So I've been doing it that way pretty much the whole time I've been doing this. And it works for me at least, and I also find it's easier when you do get those opportunities, and I don't know if we all do, but a lot of us get those opportunities when you do start pitching this to be made as something other than a book. When you send this to someone who knows that language and then is just reading it in that language, not in the normal, like, here's my comic script from tab over. It's just,
Yeah.
it's
I
the next
mean,
beat,
Vito, what have you attempted this?
I've tried so many different templates, and I find that I work slower doing those than
Yeah.
I do doing tabbing over and all that stuff. Like the thing that I learned, it was like 97 or 98. I read this news group that Kurt Busiek, it was like a seminar that Kurt Busiek did about writing comics. And I just looked at his format and I go, oh, I can do that. And just, learned how to do it. And like, I've tried other things. They don't work as fast. I'm just a lot quicker. And if I can be a little bit quicker, then I'll be quicker, even if it's extraneous tabbing or return. But, the other thing too is that I have written a Stray pilot, but in Final Draft. And I think my mind is all set. Like Final Draft is for screenplays, scripts, teleplays, whatever.
Mm.
And then comic scripting, I just do in a Word, like Google Docs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I think no one will ever tell another writer that you're wrong for doing it this way.
You're not. No one's wrong.
Yeah.
It's the way you're doing it, right? It's just
There was a script I saw, and I don't know I don't think you write like this, Vito. Maybe you do, and maybe it's how music writes. But I remember seeing what I call very loud writing, where I think the description was all caps,
Huh.
and then the text would be like a nuanced, like with a italicized word or something bolded or whatever, and it was like how they wanted it to be lettered. But the screaming at me panel descriptions, I felt sick to my stomach looking at this thing.
Sure.
I forget. I think Brian Michael Bendis might write like that. I don't remember.
There was
So you can differentiate. The point is,
Sure.
you see, oh, that's what I got to draw.
Right.
And then I can glance at the script and get a sense of, oh, are they smiling? Are they laughing? Are they crying? Whatever, to get the expression.
When I first started doing like scripts on like a word processor or a computer, laptop, whatever, I would do all that excess formatting. Like I would bold people's names. It's comes from screenplay writing too. Like, the actions are usually all caps. But like I've gotten to a point where it's like, make it easier to read, like somebody probably doesn't understand why I'm doing this, why I'm italicizing this action or whatever. So like, it's just making it easier to read for the artist or whoever's reading it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'll shoot you a script just to see the format of something at some point, like tomorrow or something. Go like,
if it's something that you're willing to show, I'll put it up in the show notes and, let everybody see.
Maybe. Okay. I'll think about that.
Let me know.
Going back to Chris's career. So at one point you were part of Activate,
my
right?
career.
I know. At one point you were part of Activate with Everywhere, and then you don't stop doing comics there. But I remember I felt like there was a regime change, and I was feeling like, oh, I've already kind of got to move out. I think part of what, and we've discussed this, I think with Vito, and I know I've talked about this with you, Chris, is that after a while, you start to realize the amount of work you're doing for other people who won't even promote themselves
Right.
half the time. And
Yeah,
so I was learning that and getting sick and tired of that, you
yeah,
know?
you had a lot of voices and really wonderful creative people, but
Absolutely.
a gang of voices. I don't know if the pyramid of it for leadership was quite,
No, it got
functional.
skewed and weird, and like there were different ideas of how to move it forward. I think at one point we had 50 or 60 contributors or something,
I
and
think six. I
because it
remember.
used to be one person got a day,
Yeah,
and there was
yeah,
like 7 creators that started it, and then it became more and more,
yeah.
and it was cool and fun, and we got a
It
lot
was
out of it. So what did you get out of acting? How did that lead you to whatever happened next? Not necessarily in movies, but in comics.
a couple things happened. I mean, I got to meet 15 different artists and work with them, right? On shorts, on 8-page, 12-page shorts. I don't think any of them went past 12. Who the fuck am I to be working with these people? At the same time, it was a free site. Nobody got paid to do anything on that. It was all just for the love of, which was also crazy. Yet there were tons of illustrators that wanted to be on Activate, but didn't want to be on Activate, which was interesting. And you used me and everywhere as a bit of a like, oh yeah, he was oh, he was, and there were a couple of, you would introduce me to just about anyone that you had ever been like, I'd like to do something there. And I ended up working with Rick Parker, Jamal, um, my God, I mean, I could just, I mean, there were so many cool people that
Fred
just kind
Harper,
of,
did Fred Harper do something with you?
Fred Harper did shoes everywhere.
Shoes
Where
everywhere.
we, that's what it was getting like towards the end, right? Simon Fraser did one. Oh my God. Everybody doing like, but the shoes everywhere never
Published.
got published because the whole thing kind of ended at the end. It took Fred a bit of time to get it
Yeah,
going.
yeah,
It had been,
yeah.
I should have just thrown it up at the time, but we didn't. I was like, all right, when I
Right.
do a book, I'll add it in. And he had used Caitlin Foisey. Do you remember
Yep.
Caitlin?
Yep.
He used Caitlin Foisey as the model.
The model. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great. It's a great. Thanks for reminding me of that. I should get that. I
And I
never
just
got
hung
that
out
letter.
with
I should get.
I just hung out with Fred, and I didn't even do my Long Island Convention of Horror recap, which I'll do after we finish this overview with Chris. But I'm writing
Fred
this
is a
back up.
sweet. Fred is a sweet dude, man.
He's a
He's a sweetheart.
he's a human unicorn.
Okay.
Seriously, super talented, the nicest guy ever. Incredible. I love Fred. So then you met a bunch of artists,
Well, you
and
you burned out and quit and left me holding the Activate bag with James Smith, which
Would
was
would
funny.
this be around Cuba My Revolution, or when in your career do you
That's a
think?
good
that sounds
question.
right. That
It
sounds
does
about
sound
Interesting.
right. It was
right.
after Cuba. Yeah, it was after. It was
Okay.
right like when that bounced and Activate started chipping away, and then you and Seth Kushner got bored. And the next thing I got was a phone call, text, or email from you saying, yeah, I got an idea to do the accent again. And lo and behold, this idea turns into Trip City.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and
With
then
Jeffrey
that
Purant as our fourth, our Fantastic Four, right?
you, Seth Kushner, me, and Jeff, and that thing was great. And it still breaks my heart that
2011. 2011.
breaks my 11 that came out. We
That's
did
right.
that. And that's supposed to be a like a number if you're into numerology, that it's like a portal number. I recently read this in the last couple of months somewhere where you see a repetition of numbers, the 222 333, something like that.
Yep.
It's angel
Yep.
numbers or something
Hmm.
they call it. I don't know how I went I got lost on a research, and I thought about that. I was like, oh my God, we opened that up on like 11/11/11. Like that's interesting. We didn't
And we
realize that
did
was
a
like
full year, a consistent year of not only producing our own material, but also editing other people and a podcast.
that was
And
rough. Yeah, we were
Vito did
over.
Steel City or
Yeah, I
something,
did
or
Steel City Noir.
Yeah, we were
And
all over.
I also did before and after uh thing, like before, like the album before Purple Rain and the album after Purple
oh,
Rain.
I
right,
remember
right,
that. I
right.
remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
Woody
yeah,
Allen, I think I did. I had a
yeah.
Led Zeppelin one
Yeah.
ready to go, and then I think everything got pulled out.
Oh, and remember the thing you proposed you wanted to do before pedophilia and after pedophilia,
Mm.
the
Oh, that would have
different.
been great. I would have been Ronan Farrow before Ronan Farrow.
Oh my God.
I'm really sorry we didn't get to put that up, Vito.
We were close.
I loved it, man. I ended up just through sadness, I ended up editing the entire podcast because I think I don't know why Jeff didn't do it. He had the exact same audio skills I had at that point. We did something like 24 episodes of that thing. I mean,
Something. Starting
we
with Michael Moore.
Michael Moore, then Henry Rollins. I mean, it was really great. It
You had
had two things.
Frank Quietly on it as well, right?
Yeah,
Uh, I
yeah,
remember. Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Baltimore
Yeah,
Comic Con.
Yeah.
it
I
was
think.
that was so much. That whole thing was such a cool experience. The beat that breaks me is that, had Seth not gotten sick and passed away, and sadly all of the site and all of the monetary, like the back end of it, was all tied to his accounts. We never saw a single notice of everything falling. I always said this. I mean, Jeff and I have said this. You and I have said this. Had Seth lived, gotten through his cancer, we would have probably all returned to that place
Hmm.
and figured out how to monetize it and 2.2, 2.5, that whole beat, because we had a really cool multimedia magazine for New York at the time. I've said this about you and creating Activate. All you guys, basically, the only thing you didn't do, because the tech wasn't there yet, was that spark to monetize it, and it doesn't become comicsology, but it becomes Activate.
Mhm.
We were. It's interesting. Like there were a couple of moments of just where it petered off, but I adored that community. I adored building that kind of grassroots indie experience with all of us for those, like, almost, I think it was 3 years between Activate and the
Yeah,
end of Trip City.
yeah.
All of it, though, was enough to catapult me out of just being this, weird guy who's working as like an actor, stand-in background guy, wanting to write, trying to do all this indie shit. It was enough for people to go, who the fuck is this guy? That, Palais Schmidt and I, then from that, we put the first a 12-page short of Thomas Alsop up on Trip City, and went on and made the pilot. And then 2013 comes, and I'm at San Diego, and we sold that to Boom. And then that would be how all of that beginning kind of gets me into real comics, no longer just clawing at the wall to get an email back, which I still do too often,
Hmm.
as you guys do as well, I'm sure. But yeah, man, that's kind of how the road went, and then thanks to Chip Mosher and an invitation to, we were walking down. I remember walking with Pally Schmidt in San Diego. We ran into Chip, and he's like, Miskiewicz, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, man, that thing I showed you, we're pitching. And he's like, are you going over to Boom? And I'm like, and I looked at Pally because he had the list, because we were literally cold pitching at every, the most fun, going up to a publisher and,
God, I hate that.
hi, I don't know you. You don't know me, but yeah. And I remember Chip Mosher looking at me going, and he cracked up. And I was like, yeah, I think we're going there too. He goes, you don't have any. He goes, I think he was like, you don't have any. I went, we don't have anything, man. I'm just walking up to everybody. And he cracked up and he went, come here. And he introduced me to Matt Gagnon. And honestly, I remember him saying to Matt, he was like, Matt, give these guys a real 10 minutes. And he, poofed into smoke into the convention center. And 30 minutes later, Matt Gagnon's like, I want you to email me this when you get back to New York. We're going to do this book. If this is what people are bringing to us at this convention, Boom is in a really interesting place next year. And it was the first place we went. We walked around to, at the time, there were a hell of a lot more comic publishers in 2014 doing indie work, than there are at the moment.
Well, that might have paid in advance. Now
Right.
everything's
Sure,
kickstarted, and there's
sure,
1,000 publishers
sure, sure.
actually.
You're
You
right.
know,
You're right. You're right.
so
At least for the old model, but that
but
started
the old
out.
model, and then we can talk about Mike Richardson later on and
Oh,
Dark Horse.
poor Mike.
So Alsop then garnered some kind of accolades. What was
It did. It surprised people. It sold a little
well,
better.
in a nutshell, explain what Alsop is for the listener.
Oh, Thomas Alsop was my first legitimate book, right? My first book. I did it with Palle Schmidt, who is the greatest gift that the country of Denmark has ever given the world, even more so than Greenland. Uh,
Careful.
we were on the phone
Careful.
talk. He and I were talking about that like 2 or 3 weeks ago on the phone. He's like, "What is going on with your country?" Like, anyway, it's a story of a family that got cursed in 1699 by a Messapequin shaman to be the hand of the island, the magical protector of New York City, and it was a generational curse where whenever the patriarch or matriarch of the family who had the power at that time passed on, it found its way to anybody else who was a blood relative in the family, and there were 18 of them. I created this crazy 300-year mythos, and there we were with Tom Alsop, this media star who had like a reality TV show, ghost hunter thing. It was irreverent. I loved it, and I can't wait to bring it back. Maybe this end of this year, maybe beginning of next year. Pally and I are gonna Kickstarter it. We got the rights back from Boom a few years ago, and have been kind of just waiting for, I don't know what, waiting for a moment that I don't feel yet to bring it back. But
Well,
Pally's
I know what you're talking about because we text back and forth a lot. In fact, I sent you a recent text, and this is jumping way ahead now to where we
sure.
are now today. And it is a question like, who do you publish to? And I've actually said that I'm allergic to pitching
To pitching.
Yeah.
to pitching, and then taking on the publishing burden. But it's small, my burden, because it's just 24-page comics basically, right? Versus a graphic novel, a book that takes a couple of years sometimes, and then selling it for $25 per unit. And I texted you recently to remind you, because we often, when there's like a new publisher that fell apart or something, or distribution or whatever, what's going on with the industry, you'll share that with me. And then I think recently I wrote, like, what do we do? You were like, you wrote, we are watching an industry massacre and epic shift.
Yeah.
And I wrote, self-publish one comic book at a time. Also, get a real job.
Yeah, and I told you not to talk to me like that.
You said don't talk to me like that. And I'm just for the evidence for the video. I don't know if it's showing up or not. Oh,
my,
come on, guys.
you and my stepmother have been saying that to me a little too often.
It's not showing. Anyway, it is, that's what it said. But rewinding back, so Alsop kind of put you on the map in a lot of ways, even though your introduction was like through Activate Trip City,
Very
but that's
indie.
just getting your,
Yeah.
fingers dirty kind of thing.
Then I
And then
almost had.
Alsop legitimizes you,
Where does
I
also
am.
fall between everywhere and Trip City? Like, is it during?
It's after.
Is it during Trip City? I thought no.
Well, he put up like a short story.
I
Okay.
wrote it. I wrote it in that period of time. It was an 8-issue series, and I at least had a version of what would be coming out. I don't know. I wouldn't say a first draft, but a couple of drafts in. But we had put up a 12-page story on Trip City, the case of Dead Uncle. That's what it was called.
I love that story.
It's a great story.
Now, I think you and Vito also share a similar trait in that like when I did 4.5 seasons of the Red Hook at Webtoon, I had a loose idea maybe what the next season would be, but I
Hmm.
hadn't thought about 4.5 seasons or 5 or 6 or 7 seasons. Whereas Chris, I happen to know, I think has in his mind written 5 seasons or more of
Not in
Alsa.
it, not in his mind.
Oh, I'm sorry.
While it was caught up
While
and
acting,
while working on these sets and doing other things, I never let this go. And I mean, at this point, it feels like a hobby, but I wrote, I no longer owned the property fully. It was stuck at Boom for a bit while we were waiting for the rights reversion period to end. And I wrote the second volume, and then I wrote the third, and then I wrote the fourth. And I have 60 pages to go through which I haven't looked at actually in 2 years for what would be the final volume.
right.
I'm out of my fucking mind. Like, what am I doing?
Are you
At the same time, though, it was all in me at that time. And to go back to it now and try to figure out, I mean, it would be ludicrous. Like the ideas were fresh, it was flowing through me. I was filled with electric. I had his energy and dialogue and cadence at that point. I went for it, and I wrote all that out. And who did I hurt? Nobody. My eyes,
I have
clearly.
two questions.
Yeah, yeah.
The one just came to me, but number one, do you plan on doing all of those with Pale again? And number two, this is more of a maybe esoteric, maybe inside baseball question. The way you just described your process of doing those other volumes sounded a lot like something I read by Grant Morrison in Super Gods or something. And I'm wondering, um, not so much if you're a follower or if you're a reader of Grant Morrison, but when you write, do you feel like you're connected to maybe a different Chris, maybe a different dimension, or whatever, like do you feel connected to something else?
That's a good question.
Thing. I mean, like you almost channeled something when you said
Yeah,
that. So I was like, hey,
yeah,
wait a
yeah,
minute.
no, I get it. I'll say yes and no. What is it? The Akashic plane, they call it, right? You know that thing or the idea space
Hmm.
that's been used in comics as well. You
Or
know
the or the
how
or the cannabis plane.
well, that plane's always flying. Um, I there was a gentleman, Mickey, on set who I had told, he's like, when after Allsop came out, people knew what I was doing. What are you writing, Chris? Oh, I'm writing something. And I would talk. I'd also use the dead time we had to go like, does this suck? Should I be pursuing this? What do you think of this fucking idea? We're in the dark here, or they're shooting fake guns at each other down the hall. And yeah, I told this guy Mickey this whole story. It was really interesting. An older fellow. He was a sweetheart, and he looks at me and he goes, "It spooked me at the time." He like leaned in. He goes, "You're not writing that. You're receiving that,"
Hmm.
and that stuck with me.
Yeah.
Right? You're receiving that. Yes, no,
Mhm.
both.
I mean,
Both.
it
I
works.
can't.
It works especially for Alsop.
Yeah.
In terms of the character and the story that you did the first time. Um, and it might work for some of the stuff like the Grateful Dead graphic novel you did
Very
for
different. Very
Z2.
different.
You know what I mean? But I mean, in a couple of the other ones as well. But I feel like Alsop, because it's so personal to you and it's yours.
I
You know,
love that show. I love
I
it.
think that that's where you would channel a lot of that kind of, let's call it esoteric, but it's more, I feel like it's more spiritual than anything, like
It's probably how you feel about Stray, how you've never let it go.
right.
You've had that. I mean, you know where that would go. You've
Mhm.
got that baby in your
Well, and,
hand.
and just to follow real quick, and I don't mean to cut you off, but just Vito, do you feel like the same that you have? I know you have a lot of stray ideas, but like Chris is already
I've said it like I know what the last Stray story is.
Right.
Sean Isaacs is currently starting to do layouts for the plot that I gave him because we're going to try to make it a little more Marvel style, more collaborative than usual. Um, and it comes out 2 years, 3 years, whatever, however long it takes. I'm just going to let him flow with it. But it's the like, and I wrote to him a couple of weeks ago that this is your last commitment to Stray, basically. And I said, and ostensibly it's mine. Like I'll do one shots here and there. I really am looking forward to. I started writing Underboss today, which Chris I'll explain in a second. I started writing script for Underboss because I think I found the right artist. Um, and I really want to get to issue 3 because Stray guest stars in issue 3. So, and it's like, this is kind of what I want Stray to be. I want him to just be kind of like this, not presence, like omnipresent, but like when it feels right for him to show up, let him show up. But at the same time, I don't want to do like doing all the stories that I've done without Sean feel like less like Stray than they do with Sean. So doing this last one is the last full story that I'll do. And then I'll do one shots, guest appearances, stuff like that.
That's cool. That is very cool. Good luck with this, man.
Thanks, man.
Good luck with this.
Yeah, well.
I remember saying this to Dean where I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing I'm ever going to write. What do I do now? I came out with a home run. What I just do, I hit fouls from here on or something with that. But it's interesting. Maybe that's like, maybe that happens with all of us. Like it is your favorite baby kind of.
But you said something recently to me, if I may, and you can tell me to shut up. And I do have a list of a couple other things I want to ask you, by the way. But because it's conversational, you said something, and it was something about. I think it's like, why would you write about yourself or something? You said something about how you don't want to write you in your books, and that especially memoir is memoir, right? But that so many people write about themselves, and I feel like I'm constantly writing adjacent versions of myself. I don't know if I have an actual avatar. Some people might think I do. And Vito, I don't think you've written yourself per se. Your ideologies of
Close,
what
FCHS.
Oh, right. FCHS.
More or less.
Which is high school drama about you.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris seems to balk at that and doesn't even like it.
Not balking. I respect it. I mean, I love memoir work, I love memoir comics. I don't necessarily need to see me or my story that I've lived out there right now. It's not important to me. I don't know why. I get why it's, why things happen and people want or feel that they need to tell something personal that happened. I don't want to. I'd rather.
The nuance isn't memoir. I'm trying to. I felt like it was also about like. Okay, let me ask you this way: how much of Alsop? How much of you are in Alsop?
Despite a lot of people saying that he looked like me and acted like me and all this stuff, he was based off of an actor, Paul Bochet. Hey, Paul. Honestly, down to his cadence, I ripped off how Paul spoke. Paul's very kind of herky-jerky. I'm like, what are you doing over there? What are you doing over here? And very ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And I just threw that into the character, right? What I think you're commenting on is I've said this before. When I am doing like my final edit, I don't know, when I'm doing dialogue edits on stuff, let's say I get turned on, but I get very happy when I can't hear myself in anybody talking. When I can't hear this guy, I know my tics and I could read my gonna and words that I throw in gonna and they're just things I say because of where I grew up and how I grew up. But I do this, I don't know if everybody does this. I go back to being on set a lot with before I send something out. And I'll sit here and I'll talk through the dialogue and do a reading alone in what I think the voices are or the cadence or the timing would be, almost like I was doing a stage reading on some scripts before I send it out to an artist. And if I hear myself when I'm doing that, it's gone. And I really enjoy that. Like I'm now, if I do ever flip, and as you get older, I think there's something that just happens to people where they need to tell a piece of their own tale and put it out there. Maybe that'll be a different kind of dialogue then, where I'll be like, haha, it's got all the weird herky-jerky words Miskiewicz says, but I, you know, I cemented that when I did the Grateful Dead book, because I remember getting an edit or two from David Lemieux, where he was like, Bob Weir doesn't sound like that, or that's not exactly how this character would speak and stuff. And after that, I really started to become this sort of, it's not about me, it's about it, right? I'm gonna be me, whether the computer's on or off, and this is made or not. So I really just started looking at the pieces more professionally. Like, it wasn't about, like, I'm going to be thrilled if there's a book. I'm going to, run around the room like a chicken without his head if I get any of these things made. Like, this is what I do, what I want to do. And I love making stories, but I don't see it as me at all. I don't, it's strange. I look at it as like the product. I don't think that's even the word to say.
Well, it's interesting because like I feel like Frank Miller started to write not in Daredevil, but later on, I felt like he was trying to do Mickey Spillane, right? And Mickey Spillane
Sure.
has a very strong voice, right?
Sure.
There's David Mamet, famous for his style of writing. Tarantino, like
Sure.
I can name, you can go on and on and on, and stylistic writing, let's call it, right? And I feel like I'm a stylistic writer.
Sure. I agree.
And so whether that's the way I really talk or not, I craft, like to have a certain kind of quote voice. And maybe all the characters sound the same, which could be bad, but then again, there's a world of, people talk like this or whatever. But I was wondering if maybe it was you were kind of rejecting that idea, or is it just your personal preference to not write stylistically, I guess, because you want each character to have their own voice, it sounds like. Right?
I think it's preference. I'm looking at I'm looking at my characters as in, each person's their own thing. And I study people. I mean, without ever realizing it, I was the only kid staring at how everybody's talking, what they're doing. I've walked into every room ever alone first, like through my whole life, right? So
Right.
I'm watching, and people don't. I could retell a story. I could write what happened in the room, but that's not the way people jive. So I try to make it as realistic as I could per character. And I do think this is very much probably partially from a lot of the conversations on set that I was privy to. I was fly on the wall behind billion-dollar producers having a conversation about why just this isn't working. That just fix that, and the whole day doesn't work, and they yank that out, and now it's fine. We're moving on. So I implemented that big time into doing this, I think.
How many?
Just to let people know, you were born and raised in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, right?
I am 100% a native New Yorker.
That's right, baby.
Polish Italian, first generation on the Polish side, which is interesting. My dad was born in Cuba. Came here when he was 10, when they closed the borders, when Castro started to change policy there, which was funny. And my family, prior to that, ran away from Poland, Ukraine farmlands it seems like we just keep running away from socialist expansions, every 60 years or something like that. But on the Italian side, I'm third generation. So yeah, the Italians have been in Brooklyn since 1902. Watch it.
So what I was going to say was that you've done what is it, 3 or 4 Z2 books based on musicians. Like there's a Rolling Stones one, right?
I did the Grateful Dead,
right?
Grateful Dead Origins for them. Elvis, the graphic novel. A creator owned, which was not their norm at the time. That was when Josh Frankel was there. He did like the story. That would be mine. That would be This Is Where We Fall. I did that with Vincent King's. And that had an artist named Mitski attached. She did three songs, one of which, or all of which, they used a voiceover of me and dropped it in. I think I'm the only person that Mitski has ever done a collaboration with on, which was very bizarre. And I had a bunch of kids coming by at one point, at Baltimore at one point. One kid was like, "Are you the cowboy?" And she has a song that which is more famous for called "Be the Cowboy" or "The Cow," something like that. And I was like, I'm like, not that one, but the other, yes. And the kid was like, yeah, it was a really cool minute. But I was in Baltimore that year. Anyway, I did This Is Where We Fall, which won, like, it got a bunch of awards. It got nominated for Book of Graphic Novel of the Year for the Ringos. James Tynan beat me. Thanks, James. And then it got nominated for it won for Best New Talent at the Ringos for and that was Vincent King's, man. Wonder Boy Vincent King's. Got his first nomination, got his first award actually on that. But and I just recently it's out, I think it's out this month. I did a book for them for the band Dance Gavin Dance, which was really interesting. It would be like a sequel to the first one they did, which McGinty was on, and it was no longer with us. So it was a strange thing to kind of jump
Vito,
onto.
McGinty, that's the artist who passed away. Did
Yeah.
he take his own life?
No,
I
no,
don't.
no, no. I don't
But wasn't there
believe.
something about comics will kill you? Wasn't there some? I feel like there was a beat there.
Is there some darkness in that? I don't really
I
remember
feel
that.
like there was some darkness in how
Yeah.
comics will kill. The Jack Kirby quote. I feel like
Mm.
was being bandied around at that point with McGinty's death.
His
I never met
first name was
McGinty.
Ian. Was it Ian
Yeah.
McGinty?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. He did. I don't think there was foul play, but I don't remember honestly
right.
what how that went down. I just remember being like, no shit, he's gone. I like that guy. He was a very sweet guy.
So my question was like, did you always like music? Do you care about music? Is music important to you? Like,
Very much.
right?
Yeah. I started the whole chat about who I am talking about, Swinger 8, Brooklyn's greatest unsigned band, I mean, I've, I 90s college grunge, all of it kind of connected with where I was at that time. Like I was the right age for these beats, I think. I mean, I remember when I was working as a messenger in New York City, my hair was down the middle of my back. I would take the all I would be with these like ripped up shorts, combat boots, and I looked like Eddie Vedder, like coming off of a bike, drenched in sweat, just like here package, man. Like, I was just always a rock kid prior to not looking like one anymore.
No, you're just a different rock kid. That's all.
Different rocker, yeah.
Maybe
But
I,
DC punk or something.
But yeah, man, I've always dug music, but I've always kind of dug the history around music too. This wasn't something I sought out to try to do. Josh Frankel pushed me to do the Grateful Dead book for something like 6 weeks. I said no to him about four times. Like I understood that this wasn't a story you could make up. This was going to be like a research job, like going to college on a topic, and I couldn't even wrap my head around how
Mhm.
to start something like that. I remember Frankel took, again, I remember he called me like, let's go get pizza. We went out and had like the pizza somewhere in the city, and that little fucker, he got me. He looked at me and he looked at me and he was like, Miskiewicz. I'm gonna do a Franco fact. Miskiewicz. It's terrible. It's the mission. It was just like, when are you ever going to be able to attach your name to something this big ever again?
Mm.
And I went, I went,
mm,
"Ugh." I remember I literally said I'd take the book by going, oh, fuck you. And I took it. And I went into 9 months of research to write that thing. I read everyone's biography. I watched over 100 hours of footage. I thankfully had David Lemieux, who's their chief archivist, there as my like, this isn't right. my first 22 pages got sliced to the garbage can by legal at Rhino, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. I figured out who I was writing for, what I was writing, how I was writing, what it was. Like it was the most brutal edit of my life. And then I didn't get a single mark for anything else I did on that script going forward, which was really interesting in a sense. Like I'm proud of that book. I love Thomas Alsop. I love my stoner sci-fi, stuff that I'm doing and trying to create on my own. I have never been more proud though of anything I ever did than that Grateful Dead book, man. That book was like I got to work with Noah Van Sciver. When Frankel at the time was like, "Yeah, I'm getting Noah to do the book," I was like, "What is going on here? Like, how am I working with Noah Van? Noah's. If you've never heard of Noah, anybody listening to this, go find him. I mean, he's a sweet man. His art was made. The whole thing was great. I loved that book, man. I absolutely loved that book. But it started out, it sent me on a weird little course of doing these music comics. And they asked me to do the Elvis book right after that. And then that was the exact same thing. But at that point, honestly, that was a lot easier to write. It was just one main character, not a band of dueling drummers and girlfriends and like, the whole 60s to kind of like get down in 5 panels.
I
Dean,
have a list that
before you ask your question, Dean,
yes.
the Ian McGinty thing that you're referring to is the hashtag comics broke me.
Broke me.
That's right. The comics broke me. Did he pass away naturally?
From what I can tell, but
I
it
think
says
so.
that it was due to the stress of working on comics that he
Huh.
might have missed some kind of health concern or it exacerbated some kind of pre-existing health concern.
Right. And I
Huh.
feel like we might have, maybe we didn't talk about that on
I don't
this
think we did.
podcast. We probably talked about this personally, before the podcast started.
Mhm.
So I'm going to do, just for the sake of time, so we can get to a couple other things. I'm going to try and do like a little bit of it, not a round robin, but like quick responses and
Lightning round.
yeah, like a lightning round.
I could do that.
So, Val Kilmer.
Oh man, the smartest person I have ever met in my entire life. I was shocked by this guy. He was the smartest person I've ever met. He was the smartest person I ever met. I can't. An ex of mine, Lori Harrison, lovely human being, was working at the James Cohan Gallery way back in the day. She was the gallery manager there, and I went down and met her and them at Art Basel, that the Comic-Con for art that they do. It's all it is. It's like instead of going and getting a $20 book, you're looking at $1 billion painting. I couldn't. Just couldn't. It bothered me. Like it bothered my heart, that place. But that guy, he was very much trying to get a piece of art, this giant two-story tree that was in Madison Square Park from this artist, Roxy Payne. He wanted it in his Santa Fe compound. He was like tax evasion. He was just like, he owed like 20 million in tax. He had so much, he was hysterical. But I met him, man. I went out to a dinner with him, hung out with him. And the coolest story I could do is when we were a couple hours later walking into this nightclub in Miami. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm with Batman. This is fucking crazy. It's Jim Morrison. What am I doing? Like, yeah. We're walking up to this, like, the red rope, right? This is what you were hoping I would say. We go over to the red rope, and there's lorries, and I don't know who. There's about 5, 8 people with us, and this is when Val was kind of heavy. Those years, his hair was kind of. He was just like he kind of got big. It was right around Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I think, around that era.
Or Heat, maybe.
No, way after he right after Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, he started getting
Okay.
just bigger. I don't remember why that was, but he was in this big white shirt, big white flowing cotton pants, this huge like hat, brimmed hat. And we walk up to the red rope guy, and he looks at the guy, and he puts his hat up like this, and he goes, And the guy goes, "Oh, Mr. Kilmer, how many in your party?" And he goes, "Them." And I'm standing next to him like, what did you just do? And he looks at me and goes, "And this." And we walk through, and a couple of paces in, I'm
Using
like,
Val Kilmer's sign language, like pantomime, like, and to describe it to the listeners only, because like it's more fun to watch us talk.
it's more fun to watch. So 5 minutes
you
in,
basically just like did a circle around his face and pointed at his nose to announce himself as Val Kilmer.
Right. And so we
And,
walk
yeah.
we walk like 5-10 feet past the red rope, and I tap him. I go, "Hey Val," I go, "What the fuck was that?" And he looks at me and goes, "Oh, my business card? International film sensation?" I died, man. I died. The guy was like, we hung out a couple times in New York. Like, it was an interesting few months that I knew him. He even took me to, he took us rather to, it's like a weird date we went on with Val Kilmer one night, Lori and I, where he took us to, what's that? What's his name? Zuckerberg. We went to a Zuckerberg birthday party at some mansion in the 70s on the east side. I have no idea what I was doing there. Like, I'm like, "Oh, it's Zuckerberg. What is, oh, it's Jim Morrison, Batman. Me, hi." I'm here
business
too.
card.
This makes sense for nobody ever, like.
I have a few more, and then I'm going to end on two things. So so three more back into the TV world. I forget what you called it, but it involves Sherlock Holmes and Watson. No.
The adventures of Shakespeare and Watson.
Shakespeare and Watson.
Detectives of Mystery. Yes, that is one of the greatest things I have ever been a part of. So web series.
Explain that briefly, if you could.
That was a 6-episode web series about about Sherlock Holmes and John Watson went to ask Bard William Shakespeare a question, and then Moriarty comes through and breaks their time cane, sending everyone lost into the time stream where Shakespeare and Watson land in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and form a detective agency to find a way back home.
And along the way they meet a character named Cracky, right? Who's a crackhead.
Ozzy Martinez, the greatest rock drummer that I've ever played with in my life in Swinger 8. He did play that. That was if anybody's still listening to this, you can find that on YouTube. I'm sorry. It's still there.
It's not up. It's not up there.
Oh yeah, it is.
It is. I'm sorry that it's up there.
I'm sorry, it's still there, and it's still there in the only remaining piece of Trip City. It's on the Trip it's still on the Trip City YouTube page on YouTube.
Oh,
it's the only thing, and the only reason that exists was because that one was tethered to me. I had formed that and tethered that in with the passwords and everything. So yeah, it's all up there still.
So two other TV things real quick, if you can. Bored to death.
My butt. My big old naked butt. It's on
you two didn't meet through that? You met prior?
We met prior. I got a text from Liz Klink asking, would you do underwear on TV? It's a role. That was the text. And I was on set and I was like, English? And what ended up happening was, you could probably tell that better. You were there at the table read. The character I ended up playing was supposed to be a big fat guy, I think. And then you threw out there, what if it was Chris? And
because Jonathan Ames created the Bored to Death show and was the showrunner. And Chris had gotten friendly with Jonathan, and once in a while we'd be hanging out.
May I interrupt?
Yes.
John Ames would smoke my weed. That was what that was. Every time we saw John would turn around and go, Chris. And just that is what John would do.
That's right. So there was this character, because there was a scenario with what do you call those? Fuzzy bear not cosplayers.
Plushies.
Furries.
Plushies. Furries. Sorry.
Not plushies, furries. And Chris is having sex with furry. You're not wearing the furry costume. You're in your under. You're naked, right? Basically,
Underneath the underwear, yeah, I
that's
was.
right.
Yeah, what John thought that was hysterical. I remember like he asked, would he do it? And you were like, he's an actor. I got that was, I mean, what was that? That was my second or third speaking role ever. And they cut, and thanks, John. Thanks for cutting my line. Thank
The
you. Thank
line,
you, John. I appreciate that.
but he's in
But
it as a guy.
I knew about 60% of the crew because of working on crew. My handler, Ellen, that day, I walked into the dressing room and she was like, your costume's over there. And I turned around and it was a pair of Fruit of the Loom tidy whities on a hanger. And I was like, oh dear God. And then it just started. And I remember, I had like whatever, sweatpants or whatever walking through, but I disrobed to get on. And I heard a grip I know through the wall call to another grip I know on that and go like, yo, check this out. Miskiewicz's ass is out. And then like 2 minutes later, like, all right, we're going to take our first take. And I was like, yeah, it was a great day. I had a great time. I have a great picture of you and I cycling over to the studio from that as well.
Here's a question. Did you have to go through makeup before going on set?
I did. They had to powder off any glare, man. Any shine. Had to go pale motherfucker. They had to get rid of that.
Perfect.
Every pore was covered. Here's the next lightning real quick, because I feel like you called me on this. I mean, bull.
Oh, yeah, that was the hardest day I've ever had. That was one of the hardest days of my life. This sucks. That was what was it? Every 50 auditions, you'd get a role. You know what I mean? So that was like, I think my fifth speaking role ever on TV. So that's 300 auditions to get this. I got an episodic guest star, and the night before I had to be there, they sent me 11 pages of dialogue to learn in a courtroom scene at 9:53 p.m. And I had to be there on set at 10 a.m.
Wow.
It's the hardest night of my life. I was like, I remember I was just like, oh, come on, man. I went up to my roof. I smoked a huge bowl. And I sat there looking at Manhattan for like 20 minutes. I was like, I wasn't thinking anything. I wasn't saying anything. I had nothing in me. I was like an empty vessel, a dead man, just sitting there going like, and then like I think it like hit like 11 o'clock or something on my watch. And I went like, well, I got to do this. And I walked around my apartment. Every trick I knew how to do that night. And then it was the hardest day of my life on set, man. I do not know how I pulled that off, but it worked.
He had two major scenes on his TV show Bull.
Great.
You're playing with the guy that's dying,
I had cancer or something like that. And it was all HTML banking codes I had to regurgitate. Such poetry.
Yeah.
What was great about it came out really well. The second scene we did also, didn't have that. It came out really well. And like when it aired, I was shocked. It was about, I had about 5 minutes of just like steady footage and it was great. I had I was shopping other agents. I was just about to kind of make that jump. And then everybody said we should go home for about a year and a half and wear masks. And that's when the pandemic happened and kind of just
that's when you kind of quit, and you quit because
I walked off. Yeah, kind of haven't gone back. I had issues with the my blood type is type O negative, and there's a lot of data that's come out now 5-6 years post the fact that the O spectrum got very damaged from the Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson shots. I was one of those. I've had a lot of issues from that. And I it until that passed, it seemed inoperable for me to go back on a film set and get junked up with this stuff that caused a lot of heart issues with me. I ended up coming away with a condition from it called bradycardia, which is like a very low heartbeat, and it's been a challenge, you know. It's been a challenge. So I didn't step back in. I did, honestly though, I did just reinstate my Screen Actors Guild card in January, mostly because I got a letter from them saying, "Hey, motherfucker, if you don't pay the dues you haven't paid in 4 years while you're wherever the hell you are, we're going to delete your membership." So I was like, in January, I was like, fine.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm back.
Maybe you'll do some stuff.
I'm currently a SAG member again, everybody. Hey, check it out. Here's my new role.
Look at that. Would you look
Guy
at
with weird hair. No,
Buffalo Bill
that
in
was,
the remake of Silence of the Lambs.
or who did Martin Short had a character?
Ed
Oh
Grimley?
yeah.
Ed Grimley. Ed Grimley.
When the pants were like,
Yeah, exactly. His hair was up. All right, so and then this is going to bring it back to me and Vito. Vito, I don't think you've ever read this. I don't think you ever read this, Vito, but for some reason, because maybe he didn't have a script in mind, or because I think it's more because he's trying to tell us how to do things right. Chris wrote an entire graphic novel with 10 or 12 chapters called the New NBPD, the New Brooklyn Police Department. Because he kept asking me questions. So what happened when the bridges tore apart, and what's the infrastructure, and how did the gas, and electric and water and how does that work on there? I was like, I don't care, Chris. I don't care how that stuff works.
It's funny because I have concerned myself with local elections.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And that's what you did in Purple Heart, right?
Could have used Chris's idea.
Well, no, and so he wrote the thing and actually created a hero too, if I'm correct, or someone with powers.
I did cops.
You had two cops.
I had two cops, and I really got into Sheepshead Bay.
Right.
If I remember, I was just like, well, wait a second, Sheepshead Bay and Rockaways, that would be where all the pirates are. There's got to be. Right. I was like, there's got to be some. How are they trading? There's got to be a black market. The Italians would get into that.
Right. And in fact, I think I was trying to convince James Smith, who had a ghost character, to do something.
You were trying to get James to draw it, and I set it in, but you'll have to forgive me which one it was, maybe season 3 or 4, whichever season was frozen in the Red Hook.
In Red Hook?
Didn't you have a frozen something with the sun?
Star-Crossed. That was season 3, I think. Yeah.
So mine was set in that frozen Brooklyn.
Right.
Which I also just wanted because I wanted to see them cold on the boats going through.
Right.
And how did I end up writing? Why did I write this gigantic thing at like 10 3-page arcs? I was working on a horrible show about ballet dancers. I can't even remember what it was. Over Under? I don't even remember what it was called. And they never were using us. And I was just in the corner like, well, why? Well, Dean, how would they get the power? Well, Dean, where is the street that is the end of Brooklyn? Well, Dean, where is and everything that I was losing my mind. Yeah, everything that I was just like, why won't you just define it?
But my whole thing is, and this will speak to, I'm like, okay, I don't want to address those things because I don't really know how to answer them. But also, I'm always like, well, what's the story? And I have a tough time trying to figure out details and then create a story around it, right? And somehow you managed through your cops to address those issues, but also then have some kind of story.
I don't remember what the full tale was. I'll pull it up, man. I'll send it.
Yeah.
I'll look it up later. Yeah, I've got it.
So there is an unillustrated, I think like 112 pages or something. It's a bunch.
I wrote it as I had nothing I was like about at the time, and I wrote it as like again, back to what I used to do on set all the time. Probably, I wrote it as my Linus blanket, not to go crazy in a place I didn't want to be. You know what I mean? I was just like, let me go into my head. Let me get out of here.
And to bring it up to date, like right now, I know you have other projects you're working on, but in particular, there's one project you shared with me that I don't know if you want to talk about involving fangs. And
fangs?
You want to talk?
Which one?
Yeah,
We're talking about Tree or V33?
both. Do you want to talk about them? I know you're
Sure.
pitching.
I'm currently pitching my balls off right now, just like I think we all are, trying to figure out how we're going to get and where we're going to get. And I do think some of the indies are scaling back on the old model, but I sent out a ton of pitches today on a few things. What do I have next? Vincent Kings and I are Wonder Boy Vincent Kings, who's doing great out in Europe right now and promoting his book with his lovely wife. And they're just doing fantastic. Where our follow-up is something that I'm calling Vampire Under a Tree. It's something I'm kind of producing a couple of different ways, but at the moment we're shopping it. We had a place we were going to do it, but I think some things just changed. But we'll see how that goes in the coming. I have another vampire piece called V33 about a vampire with an eating disorder that Pally Schmidt and I are trying to find a home for. I would like to have something with Pally that is fresh and new before we return with Allsop. For every marketing reason you would do something like that. So we're kind of in this place where the two of us, we kind of both hate each other right now that we're not going on with this tale yet. But at the same time, we're a couple of realistic reasons to just hold it back a second and do it with that. So we're trying to pitch that as well. And then my next book that's out is the Dance Gavin Dance book that I did with it's a flip book.
Who drew it? And don't you have a copy you can show?
I do. Ulysses Farinas drew one of the 50-page stories, and then Jonathan Marks Baravecchia watercolor painted the other. And going back to that, I was like, how do I make the original Ian McGinty book connect? They destroyed the universe at the end of book one. It was like, well, it's kind of a hard way to start chapter two, if there's nothing, right? So I ended up doing sort of a multiversal tale using the characters from the band Dance Gavin Dance. And honestly, I got it. I got an alert on Amazon yesterday that some guy named Chris Miskiewicz had a book out, and I follow him on Amazon. So it came at like 3 o'clock today. I was texting John Sprustein like, hey, look what the mailman brought and stuff. So it's really pretty, man. And what's really cool, I think this is great. They're making them at Z2 in squares, some of them now, so that when they do the deluxe version of it, it's a slipcase for the record
Vinyl,
as
yeah.
well. And it's like, it's a cool idea, man. It's a really
well. It started with Dean
but challenging.
Fear my dear.
Just to say this, very challenging to flip your mind into a square paneling progression. That was interesting. That was just like, imagine I was like, hey Vito, quick, 8 pages, there's squares, go. For a second you'd be like, well, wait a second. This changes all layout. What am I doing? And it was an interesting thing to do. I think, honestly, Jonathan and Ulysses both had different challenges on both of the stories. They connect, both stories connect at the end, so to speak, in the middle of the book. But like they both kind of mastered the square format. And so did Sean Von Gorman. Hey, Sean, in the Cool Keith book, which was the first time I saw one of those square formats that they had as well. I think it's cool.
Well, I was going to say, technically, I was the first square book at Z2 when
That's right. You're right.
Josh Frankel published me and Paul Pope, and Paul's was more traditional, and mine was square because Billy Dogma Immortal and Billy Dogma Fear My Dear at Activate were square panels.
It was the square panels that you were
So then we went with the square format. And if I ever reprint that, I'm probably going to do, instead of 4 panels a page, the occasional big panel will probably be 6 panels a page.
I would think, I would just rejigger it. Like,
You might run into narrative problems with that, depending on what the other two would be.
Or what the panels are doing, and that kind of stuff. I mean, definitely. So I got to think about that.
That's interesting.
So,
listen to me sounding like an editor, finally.
Yeah, right. Well, first of all, we're not ending it just yet, but thanks for this overview of your career, because I think a lot of people listening will be fascinated by this and use it as a warning of what not to do.
What? Don't do this. Go to school.
Go to school.
Don't do milk. Drink drugs.
I say it all the time. We all break in differently. Every time one person breaks in, they change the lock, so you have to go through a window, and after that window, like they put up something. Like,
they paint it black.
Yeah,
you're totally right. Black. Or they just move.
They just move.
They found us. We gotta go.
So I briefly wanted to mention the Long Island Convention of Horror that I was at last weekend. Last time we spoke, Vito, it was Patrick J. Kennedy, who was the organizer and creator of that show. It was a fun show, not a great moneymaker, unfortunately. I got to meet a lot of people, including Chris. Emily Mead. Do you know she was on the Deuce?
Emily Mead.
She was on the Deuce. Really good actress. Oh, she was in The Penguin. She's been in a bunch of stuff. If you look her up, you might recognize her.
I'm gonna look her up. I don't.
She was the furry. She was the furry and bored to death. You just don't recognize her.
You didn't recognize her. Yeah.
I know Emily. Sure.
You know Emily.
Yeah.
And then there's another. There was a bunch of people who had done horror films and whatnot. And, another actress named Hannah Fireman, which was cool. I met this. Well, I'd already met Liz Ransdale, a neurotic horror writer. It was an interesting thing because I don't do horror shows. This is the first one I ever been to, and so I don't do horror proper. I've actually done a 20-page story that's supposedly coming out soon through Tom Akel and the Lights Out anthology, which is a 20-page horror. And I've drawn a Frankenstein story, COVID cop and chest face, or maybe body horror kind of.
We were just talking about Frankenstein too, I think, in an email or a text. You and I.
Yeah, we were, and I'm still trying to pitch this idea I want to do where I expand my 10-page story into something bigger.
That Frankenstein story.
Yeah.
With the tip.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a cool little. I've always liked that tale. Yeah, that was a good.
So I have a bigger idea, and I'm talking to actually somebody right now about the possibility of doing that. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. I got to go. I brought Fred Harper out, and we shared a room and two tables. I hung out with Larry Hama. I mean, it was
Larry, man.
It was fun, but and I hung out with Lloyd Kaufman and Troma, Toxic Avenger, and the guy who's playing Toxie these days, and so it was interspersed, and but it was in Hop Hog, New York, which I think is not easy to get to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would do a convention there. Nothing against Hop Hog, although. There was like a couple of food trucks, for the first couple of days. And then Sunday, when everyone's super hungover, the only food truck they had out there served baked clams. And
no.
Welcome to Long Island.
Why would you do that?
You get a nice glass of milk, some baked clams.
Baked clams and milk. No, but I love Patrick J. Kennedy, and I hope I wish him success with this show and everything else he does. And then I discovered a sketch hack that I'm going to share with you guys.
Okay.
So one of the reasons why I drew a lot of comics, and I'd say the majority of the Red Hook series from Webtoon, I drew on really crappy sketch paper. So not only could I get like some dry brush effects and everything, but I started to realize that I was intimidated by really good 2-ply Bristol board. I felt like I was ruining the paper with my art. So one of the reasons why I love drawing on, I get Fancy Feast for my cats, and between every 6 cans is a piece of cardboard, and you get like 2 of these per box, and I keep these, and I love drawing on this cheap, cardboard because it's not as intimidating. I also love what it does to my brush. But I found an even better hack. Oh, and I also will draw on when I get Chinese food, the ones that are in between the wonton soup and the.
Ready, everybody.
So I have, and then on the back of it is like this. But then you find a good side, and you can draw on that side.
I've got a happy birthday, Chris, up there. That's on some of you.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So the final hack I discovered today was I don't know if you can see this, but this has a bend in it. This side, see guys, of this piece of cardboard. I was like, oh, that's a shame. I can't use this. I went, no, I'm just going to draw real quick, like a 2-minute
Yeah.
Batman on this busted thing. And it even freed me up even more to just be able to just like, who cares?
Yeah.
I'm just like, I wasn't even thinking when I drew that. And I thought it looked cool. And then I thought, what I learned at OAX, Original Art Expo, was that people like to buy original art, and I don't sell my original art except for when I do commissions, right? And so at one point on the Sunday of the show, they had these little sketch cards, and I would just draw a quick little Batman. I was like, $20. And within 30 seconds, somebody would run over and just throw a 20 down and take my Batman. It was like I was making money.
That's interesting.
So I'm like, I think I'm going to put this online and say $40 and see what happens. And maybe, I should start selling my art. In the spirit of this, you know?
How many pages of art do you have in that house? Do you have, it's everything, right?
Yeah.
It's like
the only thing I don't have is I did a 4-issue miniseries called The Thing, Night Falls on Yancey Street with Evan Dorkin. And then about 2.5 issues in, or maybe 2 issues in, out of a 4-issue miniseries, they brought in an inker, Wade Von Grawbadger, who's a great inker, to ink me. And so what happens at Marvel and DC is when an inker inks a penciler, they split the pages when they return the art. So some goes to the inker. So Wade got a bunch of pages that I don't have, but I think I have everything else otherwise.
Wow.
Which is a lot.
So I want to show you guys something real quick. While Dean was at Long Island Convention of Horror, I was at ZoloCon.
That's right.
In King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and like outside of Philly. It's a collector's convention.
Okay.
Mostly action figures, some 3D printing. You know, we met this one guy who makes these weird sculptures out of like monster cans.
Okay.
He was really cool too. But I wanted to show you this, Dean, especially because I feel like you would know who this character is. So I found this, which is Amigo of the Grim Ghost from Atlas Comics.
Oh yeah.
And it comes with a comic inside of it and stuff. It's the weirdest looking, dumbest looking thing, but I love it.
Is that Murphy? What's his name?
Murphy Anderson?
Buddy? Yeah, no. The guy who did Stray or was going to do. Wait, did you have a Stray doll made? I forget.
No, Bill Murphy. Yes,
Bill Murphy. That's it.
That's not him. This is, though. Speaking of Frankenstein, Operation Monster Force, which when you open it has a little comic.
Yeah, that's cool.
That your boy lettered.
That's cool. There you go.
So I actually worked on this.
That's really cool.
And I have another one that's the Invisible Man. So yeah, this is Bill Murphy's joint over at Big Bad Toy Store, Operation Monster. They go like crazy. Or selling like hotcakes.
So what I learned too is like I started making prints. That's another no duh moment. Like sell original art, make some prints. Most people don't want to read comics anymore. After all this conversation we've just had, people don't want to watch a whole movie or read a whole comic book anymore. I don't understand it. You know, like that might be an old way of consuming, narrative. Now they like a print or a doll or something,
Which is funny because when we were there were comic artists set up. Yeah. Like their own tables and stuff. And they were mostly artists that worked on someone's franchise toy or something like that.
Right.
Or someone's independently created toy, but empty. Like even with the prints, even having nobody was there. Everybody was at one end and they were at the other end, and it was just
crickets. Yeah, it's hard, man. It's you really got to figure out the shows where people, what's focused on. I think a lot of shows try to be everything, and I think most shows are better when they're a couple of things. You know what I'm saying? And especially when you're in a particular space. And I get it. If you're going to go to a part of New York or the country where they don't have San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con, which can be everything, but even that I think is hurting. Like I did not like the most recent New York Comic-Con Artist Alley. Like I felt, and I talked to a lot of other artists, and no one did well. I mean, maybe a couple of people, but the people that are selling stickers and prints were probably definitely doing better than anybody with narrative, in their hand. And that's not me griping about the state of things. It just is what it is, uh, I mean, this is a question for another time, but like, are people, young people, can they indulge feature-length stories? Can they indulge? Well, they are reading YA novels, right? Like your kids, Vito, are they reading graphic novels, right?
Katie reads manga. She just like a couple of days ago, when we were at King of Prussia, we came across this. It was like a Korean like toy store or something like that. And somewhere in that mall, in the King of Prussia Mall, which is huge, by the way, she found a spot that had Sailor Moon. So she bought another Sailor Moon manga. So,
Okay. Okay.
and she's got Raina Telgemeier's books. She's got a bunch of different things.
So maybe, I mean, again, I haven't done a long form story in a while. Like I still do these little bits, right? Like, but also I don't know how I can survive to try to take a year or two to write and draw a long
Mhm.
form story. You know, in some ways, going back to like the way Chris writes comics, which is in a screenplay format, I find that my current sweet spot is writing play. I like to write plays, even more than a screenplay, you
Let me
know.
ask Chris, would you do a play? Like, have you ever done stage?
It's written one.
I one of the things I mentioned earlier, Vincent and I are going to attempt to stage as a play as well. So I've never done it before or written one before. This will be my first crash and burn or flight. I don't know yet. But I've been yeah, I'm gonna attempt to do. I'm also been branching out with typing lately as well. I'm a 100 plus pages into a novel,
Hmm.
which has been an absolute humbling situation to do. It's very different writing prose in this manner
Very different.
than
Yeah.
scripting. And maybe I should have done this earlier where you were asking me about, why I don't incorporate this guy in any of the writing. The book is very first person, and I honestly feel like it's been so daunting to do because of that. It's the inverse of how I normally go about creating something. So
Well, also you're committing to, if it's you, you're committing that every sentence is representing you
also,
versus a
yeah,
character or someone else, you
and
know?
honesty in a sense too, which
Oh,
has
absolutely.
been
The most honest. Well, the
maybe
most honest you
rough.
can be, because
Sure.
actually one of my favorite memoirs I ever read, and I encourage everyone to read it. And it's so it's like in beautiful horseshit, but it's also might be real. It like is William Friedkin. William Friedkin's memoir is unbelievable to
Hmm.
read because it's so narcissistic in some ways, but he did what he said.
Right.
Right,
It's just his point of view is incredible, you
right,
know?
right.
Uh it's so much fun to read, William Friedkin, Exorcist and The
Yeah,
French
yeah.
Connection and so many great movies, and the way he thinks and talks is incredible,
That's
you
great.
know. Anyway,
So
I've
we're at
always
we're at 2 hours. We're at our 2 hour mark.
We
Um,
did good. We talked.
yeah, I do want to mention that we had Joe Willage on a couple of weeks ago. The Dakota Incident. I'm sorry, the new history of the DC Universe. The Dakota Incident has sold out its first printing. They are going to a second printing. So
wow,
perhaps we're looking at the culmination of a milestone renaissance at DC. So they
yep,
just announced today that a second printing is coming. Um,
right.
DC's
Dark
been putting
Horse,
out some
what's that?
But
solid DC's been putting out some solid
Yeah.
curveballs lately. I mean,
before you get to Dark Horse, I
Mhm.
wanted to give a shout out to our guys in Australia.
Oh, Club Domingo with Gary. Yeah.
They had a 1 year anniversary.
Mhm.
Happy birthday, guys.
Congratulations, guys.
And then I don't think we're gonna get to too many industry news, but like the one that's just making everybody go, huh, is Mike Richardson, the founder and publisher of Dark Horse Comics for 40 years and is 75 years old, got fired from his own company because, and did you read up on it, Vito?
Yeah,
Like something called
it's
Embracer.
yeah, that's the name of the gaming company that owns Dark Horse. as
And a
of
recent acquisition, right?
2012, was it, or something like that?
About a
Oh,
decade.
It's been a
okay.
couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, he also co-founded the company with was it Randy Tischler? Like or
No,
some
that's Baltimore Comic Con Rangers.
right? No, it was Randy something. I'm confusing names, but anyway,
Oh, so with an S, I think.
maybe. But
Anyway,
I have you ever been to the Dark Horse offices? Either of you?
I
Not the
have
offices. No, I've been to
Milwaukee,
the.
Oregon.
Yes.
Milwaukee, Oregon. And actually, when Hannah Mean Shannon was an editor there, I got invited. I forget why I must have been going to Portland, Oregon, or I must have been going to a Wizard World or something, you know? And she was out there and invited me to come to the office. I think I crashed her house one night. And I remember seeing Diana Schutz, Scott Alley.
Yeah.
Is that sound right? And Mike Richardson invited me to his office and talked to me for an hour.
Wow.
And he I can't remember the story right now.
Wow.
He said, "Let me ask you a question." And I was like, "Okay." After we were talking about some stuff, and I got to be in Dark Horse Presents. I did 3, chapters of a Red Hook story.
That's
And
cool.
he tells me this entire story involving a couple of characters here and there, and then it does this, and then he stops at a certain point, and I remember thinking, "This is a test." And he goes, "What happens next?" And I was having a tough time following this damn story because I was like, it kind of didn't make sense to me. But I kept thinking, he's been trying to crack this story for years and probably invites people to his office
Oh, that's
to
funny.
try to figure out where this story, or he just gets a different answer every time or something just to fuck with. I don't even know what had happened.
What was it
What an
called? Do you remember what it was
incredible-
called?
No, I don't remember. I remember feeling stumped because I'm really good with story, and if I can latch onto something, I can at least find a road or an avenue, right?
I
And
have some graphic novel that he wrote somewhere from Dark Horse in like my pile of crazy books that I
oh
found.
yeah,
I wonder if it's that.
I once
no, because this would have been, oh God, when would this have been?
you
In
that
the
would have been
last
the
10 years?
2000s. I mean, maybe even
Yeah,
2010s.
I like this story though.
because this was after Red Hook came out 2016, so this would have been like 2018,
Yeah.
27. Wait, something like that. Anyway,
This
anyway, I
sounds like
just
a
remember
this is like
thinking,
a Lorne Michaels story or something. Like, come on in
totally.
here, I got a question for you.
I got a question for you. And then told me this elaborate thing that again, I was starting to lose like the thread of the story. And I was just trying to listen to it like, oh, that sounds really cool. And then suddenly stopped at me. What happens next? And I was like, oh my God. And I might have give him some answer, but it was not satisfying enough. But he was really cool.
I got
And
I got to go up there. I went up. Shauna Gore, when she was an editor up there,
oh yeah.
invited me over, and I got to meet Scott Alley as well, and a couple other folks there. I might have met Mike briefly, but not to the point where he was telling me a story and asking me for the ending.
Sure.
Now
Sure.
Dark Horse published American Splendor for a little while with Diana Schutz, right? So can I tell you a quick Shauna Gore story?
Sure.
And this is gonna make her sound not so great, but I understood, like when I tell you the story, you'll understand what she was dealing with, okay? But I remember it pissed me off. So she was, Joyce Brabner and Diana Schutz were like, knocking heads, And so at some point, Shauna Gore took over American Splendor, like the last couple of issues. And they were having budget issues. Like I think the comic just wasn't selling well enough, right? And this was before I did the Quitter, or maybe I was doing the Quitter and I convinced Vertigo to start publishing American Splendor, kind of stole American Splendor away from Dark Horse, right? But I remember I was going to do a story, and they were paying like, I want to say $75 a page or something, like maybe 100, right? And I remember she was in Brooklyn and she wanted to swing by. So she came to my home on Carroll Street, and she came in and we were talking, and she was talking about like, I have a really good idea. And I was like, what? She's like, what if you turn the page sideways, traditional page sideways, and you got 2 pages on that, and you just drew smaller? And I was like, wait, for what? I was like, what do you mean? She's like, and now we get 2 pages for $75. And I'm thinking, I'm still drawing 2 pages for now less money now. Like it didn't, and I could be getting this wrong, but I remember thinking, what are you talking about? Like she was desperately trying to figure out how to save this book from collapsing and not and keeping within a small budget. And it just seemed the opposite. Like it's getting even worse now by suggesting
I love this
sideways,
but it's
and getting 2 pages worth of stuff out of 1 page. I'm like, but I'm doing double the work and drawing it smaller.
If I'm ever in a meeting or if I'm on a project that's totally about to fall to shit, I'm gonna pull that out of the air and be like, listen, I've got an idea to save this.
Here's an idea. This is how you save. This is how you make the book even more affordable. You draw 2 pages on one sideways, and you get what? Anyway, I should ask her what she meant because
that's fun. I like this.
It would just confuse the hell out of me. I was like, what? Anyway. All right, so then I guess what's there to say about like
Richardson?
So what happens when a corporation takes over? You know,
how old is he? Said, what do we know the reason that he was let go at all?
I think partially could be that he's probably being paid monies that they don't need to pay him.
Right.
I don't know.
Restructuring, they said,
and they haven't announced. Well, there's been no announcement on who's taking his place.
There's somebody from the gaming part of the company that is temporarily taking over until they do that.
Don't do that. Well, no more gaming people, no more YouTube people, no more anybody that. But
that's what they're doing. So Dark Horse isn't Dark Horse anymore without Mike Richardson.
Yeah,
let's put it that way. But we got 40 years, you know.
Say that, and then they just announced that Terry Moore is going to be bringing his abstract studios to Dark Horse. There's going to be a new Paul Chadwick Concrete coming out. So I mean,
but I'll say no. I hear you, but what I'm going to say to that, my response to that is like IDW, which is trying to do franchises and maybe games and everything else.
Like licensing,
they do. Let's call it imprints.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like don't forget IDW published the Activate primer. You know, like Activate's not part of IDW, and that was Scott Dumbier. You know, me setting up a deal with Scott Dumbier. You know, like, and then they do like imprints or whatever where you use their like Top Shelf. Okay, it publishes with IDW. Okay, it's because IDW still has their distribution and printer or whatever, so that you bring in a certain voice that publishes certain comics, and they're kind of using it as a way to stay in publishing in a cheaper way. And I wonder if Dark Horse is also providing certain services like that, if that makes sense. And actually, like a packaging deal. Yeah. And the other thing, and again, I could be talking on my ass. I'm sorry. I'm just
you're speculating.
A real quick comment I wanted to make earlier when you brought up Grim Ghost from Atlas.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we talk about Charlton Comics and how awesome the concept was behind Chris, Charlton Comics, what it was, right? The company,
mm-hmm.
that it was basically a warehouse, okay, with an office that had like Dick Giordano or somebody that was the editor, maybe a couple art tables. And so they'd be producing these comics. Then they had the printing section in the building. And then trucks outside that did distribution, right?
That's amazing. That's insane, though. I mean,
and you think about Atlas Comics, like they had Chaykin, Steve Ditko. They had a bunch of really cool art. Gray Morrow, I think, might have drawn the Grim Ghost.
Gray Ghost, yeah.
Yeah, Gray Ghost. And then they had their
Grim Ghost. I'm sorry, I keep saying Gray. That's from Batman. I apologize.
It's Grim Ghost, right? And like, so they had like a little section of comics for a few years, right? With Larry Lieber, was he the publisher, right?
No, it was Martin
Goodman?
Yes, Martin Goodman.
Wait, the original publisher of Tommy and Marvel?
Yep.
And then when he left or was ousted?
Oh, like Mike Richardson? Maybe.
Like Mike Richardson, I wonder.
That's interesting.
Anyway, then he started Atlas with, certain pulling some talent from Marvel and DC or whatever. Anyway, that's another book I'd like to read. Like, what comics did you publish? How many issues? Like, what happened? Like, I not that I love failed companies, but I love I love when a story has a little bit of an ending because it has a beginning, a middle, ending, and you can learn from that, right? Like these
I
little publishers, that tried to do something in the face of Marvel and DC,
what I think we mentioned it during the Nick Purpura episode where we were talking about Tarzan, and we were saying that until a character dies, they don't really have a legacy, and that's the same
That's
principle.
right. And
Huh.
that came from Alan Moore. I think Alan Moore said that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Man,
all
I
right.
mean, if just think about this, like that guy, we have Sin City because of Richardson
The
and Dark
Mask,
Horse.
Hellboy.
Hellboy.
Hellboy was the next thing I was going to throw out. I
Yeah.
mean, you can just basically even like dilute that a little bit. We have Mike Mignola, period, because of Dark Horse Comics and that Hellboy series and Mike Richardson. Like he might have just been Mike Mignola, not Mike fucking Mignola. I
I
mean,
mean,
one
also
of the
one of
most
the early adopters of
influential.
manga in America. Not the first, but he was one of the early adopters of manga.
Sure,
Long running publisher of Lone Wolf and Cub for many
sure.
many years.
We got Dr. Giggles.
Was
The Mask.
Mage there? I don't remember.
Got the
I mean, there,
Mask.
there were so many titles that went through Dark Horse for years that were just like, but I would just say, even if you had to just bring it down to Miller, the entire Sin City decade and a half of that, and then all of Hellboy. I mean, it's not. It's like it's in the lexicon. It's across borders. It's like everyone knows these titles.
Hmm.
It's
And
just that's just so interesting.
very few publishers have lasted, like Fantagraphics. I don't know how old John Corley is.
Sure.
Most publishers don't last as long. I mean, not that Dark Horse is done; it's still going, but the legacy is now capped at 40. And let's see what happens.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not denouncing it. Maybe there's a good reason why Mike Richardson should leave. Maybe he's in the way of getting new ideas through that. All of us are like, huh, what? What are you talking about? Like, I don't know.
I
Maybe
don't
they know exactly what they're doing, but it's a bummer. And for me, it's like just thinking, imagining, like what if Activate was 40 years old or something, or however many years, like, and suddenly it's just taken away from you, like literally you've been fired from your own. I was telling
that
Vito.
yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. Like 40 years, people, humans are what they do. You can't delete your position, your job, where you spend your hours from your experience, your collection of memories. So like here's this cat that's been there, as long as like, two generations of human beings walking around. Like that's insane. Like what does he do on Monday?
Hmm.
Exactly.
What was his normal protocol? How often was he at Dark Horse proper? Like,
Sure.
what would I don't know what I would do, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it was like, going through like just such a daily shift from being on set, doing 60 hours a week to being with my dog and cat during the pandemic was like, could you imagine someone doing that for their entire adult life with the successes he's had? What do you do on Monday? I don't know.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, like, that's where I kind of went
That's
when I was
exactly
reading
what
it.
I'm thinking too, because of course at 75 he deserves to take a break, and
Whatever he
go on
wants.
vacation and take a snapshot of his legs on a beach, right?
Yeah, sure, sure.
But
The thought that just came to me was, imagine if there was a publishing concern that Mike Richardson, Karen Berger, Paul Levitz,
Oh
and
my,
say Dennis Kitchen all together, like throw in Scott Dunbier, like the five of them, like just putting out like the best books you've ever seen.
that would be
yeah,
amazing.
designed by
Is
Mark
Karen?
Chiarello.
Is Burger Books still an imprint there? Is that, or did
It
that?
was, from what I understand. I know Karen had some nice things to say about Mike Richardson in
Yeah.
regards to Burger Books and stuff, so it could very well still be.
Karen was lovely. She always gave me the time of day. That woman is a saint and like a titan in this field. I
Hmm.
have not a bad word against her ever. She was lovely. She was lovely. I was no one, and she would say hello, Chris, to me
She's
years
great.
ago. She was lovely.
Love Karen Berger.
Lovely.
Yep.
Hi, Karen.
Oh yeah,
Karen.
she's one of our regular viewers
Of course.
every Monday.
I think she
Speaking of
just had a
Monday,
birthday.
what's that?
I think she just had a birthday.
Oh, well,
Anyway,
happy birthday, Karen.
happy birthday, Karen.
Speaking of Monday, tomorrow, I believe, is going to be the launch of Stray Requiem issues 1 through 3. So if you haven't already, sign up at iamthestray.com to be one of the first notified as soon as we launch. I'm deathly afraid of this because it's the first time I'm kind of like giving away um, control. Basically, I'm letting Charlie run it, but I'm very excited because I know Charlie is fantastic.
McKelvey?
Yeah,
Charlie?
and
Yeah.
Charlie's going to be running. Well, we're going to be running the campaign together, but like
Cool.
Charlie is, he does all the right things I do that I don't do right. You
Got
know,
it.
read my latest Substack, which the link will be down below. You can see I wrote a little thing called accountability, and it's about acknowledging my flaws when it comes to Kickstarter and my hopes for people to show back up.
Kickstarters are brave, man. Dina's kind of kicked it. I'm really proud of you doing it. I have yet to jump into that world to do this yet. It's a thing. There's a whole way to do those campaigns, man.
But I think you'd be great at it, and because you're all about decimals and this and that, and then doing some showman stuff, performative, I think actually it's a no-brainer for you to do it.
Yeah,
But
I think Alsop is a very, very natural fit for that audience as well.
It's soon. I mean, we see what's happening in comics this year, so most likely
Yeah.
sooner than I thought, or sooner than I think,
yeah. So, all right. Well, I guess that's it. I think this might be our longest one, Vito.
Yeah, so far.
What are we at? What are we at right now?
We're at an hour and 2 hours and 20 minutes. Excuse me.
Oh wow, we
But
should
yeah,
end at
I think we are at
222 for like
the
the
longest.
angel number then, right? We should try to aim. We should try to aim for that.
There he is
Oh,
again.
go to 222. Yeah.
That's where we should end it, right? Right
So
on that.
we're gonna end it. Let us know, Vito, since you're watching the clock.
Yeah, I'm watching the clock. Let's
Well-
first of all, I want to say we do have a T-shirt. Look down below in our show notes. You'll see the link to it. We're also taking donations for upgrading equipment. So that link is also down below. Chris, what is your Instagram? Any kind of link you want to promote?
It's my unpronounceable name on everything. Chris Miskiewicz on Insta, on Facebook, on the Twitter. Although there is also another Chris Miskiewicz. He does astronomy videos, and they're great. You should follow him too.
Nah, he's a jagoff.
No, he's great. No, really, we're friends. We follow each other everywhere. I think, and we both try to get whenever there's a new platform, we're both racing each other to be Chris Miskiewicz on it.
So we got
How's the
minute
time?
left.
We have one. So the way you spell Miskiewicz is Miskiewicz.
It is the exact same cadence as the original 1950s Mickey Mouse song. Miskiewicz. And I'm not kidding. That's how I learned how to spell it in kindergarten.
Oh, that's funny.
It's
That's
horrible.
funny.
I literally did.
We need to get Miskiewicz and Sienkiewicz on a book.
Oh yeah,
Call it Kevich.
Kevich. That's right.
Story about
Kevich.
about two guys with weird names talking.
No, they kvetch
Yeah.
the whole time. Uh-oh, what just happened?
Oh,
okay.
he froze for a second.
Did we hit our 222?
No, he wanted to get to his angel number quicker. It's not happened yet.
Exactly.
So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We reached 2 hours and 22 minutes. We got our angel number. We'll
Thank
see
you
next
both
week.
for
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dean.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having me
everyone.
on, guys. You guys this was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Stray goes live tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.